Now it's time to turn our thoughts to eggs. I loved a recent presentation at Rotary from actually the CFO of Craigmore Farming. He was talking about the opportunity for our businesses to move into diversifying with farm-raised eggs as well, with the jolt in supply hitting the shelves with the New Zealand government legislating to phase out caged eggs. So I wanted to check up tonight. Of course, it's Easter and we're talking about Easter eggs, on the essential product of eggs and how the lockdown has affected the supply chain. So welcome to the country. We have Michael Brook from the Poultry Industry Association with us. Now, Michael, firstly, can you explain to our audience what I was just talking about? And please correct me if I've got it a bit wrong, but I was watching the presentation of how the industry was adjusting to phasing out caged eggs and that supply issue.
Okay, so the Egg Producers Federation, which is one of the organisations to look after, that's the organisation that looks after the interests of egg farmers. So what happened in 2012, the government, through its advisory committee, said that current cages, what some people call battery cages, the old style cages had to go, and they had to go depending on their age, some by end of 2018, some by the end of this year, and all gone by 2020. And at that stage, 86% of the flock, which is about 4.2 million hens, were in current cages. So that was a big call. And what they said it could be replaced with were free range, where hens are kept in a barn but have access to the outdoors, barn raised, which is where they're kept in a barn but don't have access, and another system called colonies, which are much bigger cages with between 20 to 80 birds, which has a nesting area, perches, scratch pad. And so that were the systems people moved into. A lot of cage farmers moved into colonies already. And then in 2017, the two supermarket chains here said, from 2025, 2026, we're not going to take colony eggs either. So that has put a real shock into the egg system. And so for a lot of the big players, that's something that's been playing out. COVID-19 is just yet another issue that's come along, really.
And also, it wasn't just the legislation time, it was also the fact that a lot of brands such as Bidvest in the food service industry and the major supermarkets jumped on board quite in advance of those deadlines that also really jolted those supply issues as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that is, so as I say, with the two supermarket chains, you've got a number of what we call QSRs, quick service retail, so they're your McDonald's and others. Some of them have gone to free range. But I think it's important to understand that to change from cage to free range is a completely different farming system. You need a new farm, you need land, etc. We all have the joys in the farming sector of the Resource Management Act, and egg farmers have struck no different in terms of that. So there have been a lot of difficulties for those big players. So currently, there's still about 46% of the flock is still in current cages, but they have to be out by the end of 2022. So not much time left for those big changes to be undertaken. You are seeing a move to barn, which has never been big in New Zealand, but you are seeing a bit of a move towards barn.
What about the problems with COVID-19 that you're facing on top of what's going on with the supply issues leading into it? For the eggs that are not going into supermarkets in particular, there's a really great fruit and veg store on the way to Prebleton here where people source their eggs normally, or dairies and cafes, of course, use a lot. So is there a sort of a bit of a backlog and a stockpile of eggs going on at the moment?
Yeah, so certainly I also look after the poultry meat industry, so chicken, turkey and duck. They're lucky. They supply primarily to supermarkets. They supply to the Kentucky Frieds and such like, but they've been able to supply to supermarkets. And a number of the big egg suppliers supply to supermarkets as well. But a lot of our smaller members, and that's about 80% of our members, their market is cafes, local hotels, fruit and veggie stores, corner dairies, farmer market. And the lockdown just wiped out their whole market overnight. And I've been doing surveys, and some of these guys had 95, in some cases 100% of their market. Pretty hard times, and some of them admitted the first week was tough. Some, I'm pleased to say, have been really proactive and moved to online supply. It's not a total solution, but it's a big solution for those. Some others have found it tougher to do that. We are actually setting up, hopefully by tomorrow, we're going to set up as a federation a website called Eggs Direct. You'll be able to go in there, look on that website, see the names, address, phone numbers of a farm. If there's a local one, you can order there with that farm, and the farm will supply you eggs. So really encourage people to look out for that and to utilise that and help these farmers through this tough period. I do think this whole issue of online is going to radically change the way we shop in this country. I see the supermarkets are saying they've taken on 60, 70,000 new people with online, and I think online may well change the face of New Zealand retail for a number of sectors, and eggs will be one of them.
We have actually I found my mother sends me a lot of just random stuff on Messenger over lockdown. I think she might be going a bit stir crazy, Michael, but the last one she sent me was hilarious. I'm going to play it out in the show later on, of a young girl in the UK, like a toddler, who's just discovered that she can't get her KFC and a McDonald's and she has to eat her mum's home cooking. So you must stay to watch that. But how's animal feed going at the moment with, imported grain and parts of fundamental feed elements to the poultry industry?
Yeah, so for both poultry and pigs, or certainly for poultry, 70% of the cost of a meat chicken or egg is animal feed. And so we get both domestic grain, but also have imported grains, certainly in products like soya meal, dried distiller grains, which has been affected not by COVID, but by the ethanol reduction in the US. At the moment, the import vessels are coming in. There is a potential issue arising with maybe certification arriving with those grains, but it's looking good. I do think you'll see a real drop, not for our members, not the feed millers, but people who have imported palm kernel. There are strong suggestions that the palm kernel market will collapse because palm kernel is not being bought, so that places in Malaysia and Indonesia that have palm kernel as a byproduct haven't got it for sale to New Zealand. That could be a big issue for the pastoral sector with drought still around.
Well, it's interesting actually because, I hear that palm kernel will be in demand in some of those drought areas as one of the only options really left. And we'll have Alison Stewart, the CEO from Foundation for Arable Research, on the show to talk around those grain supplies into the feed grain. So lastly, I just need to ask you, before you're going into Easter, and we've got a nice long weekend to make, sleep in and have breakfast in bed, what's your favourite way that you like to have your eggs, Michael?
I'm a poached eggs is my thing. Just in boiling water, a little touch of vinegar. Yep, poached eggs on toast.
So vinegar does work.
Just a little touch of it. Well, I find it. But then, as my wife will say, I'm no great cook, so I shouldn't be giving advice to anyone.
Thank you so much. That is Michael Brooks, who joins us there from the Poultry Industry Association.
This is Sarah's Country.